As soon as we've actually overcome the firewall, fine, the stream is on. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning and welcome to the International Press Conference for Techtextil and Texprocess during Techtextil in Frankfurt. For all of you I have not seen yet, and it's not many because we've been around for a number of days already, a Happy New Year, lots of health, lots of happiness, lots of success to all of you. Of course, I would also like to cordially welcome our journalists online. As I said, we have this stream online again, so some journalists have joined us online. A very warm welcome to you in particular. Just to inform you, at the end of each presentation, there will be time for Q&A, so journalists back home or at the desk can question or pose questions anytime they like. And as soon as the Q&A session starts, I will actually hand on these questions to the speakers. I will, for privacy reasons, not give away your name. I will only mention the publication and the title. And I will have these questions on my tablet. Let's talk about the speakers and the contents of this press conference now. It is opened by Olaf Schmidt, Vice President for Textiles and Textile Technology of Messe Frankfurt, followed by Elgar Straub, Managing Director of VDMA Garment and Leather Technology from Munich. Then Michael Jennecke will speak, Brand Director for Technical Textiles and Textile Processing. He will actually talk about Texprocess and Techtextil. And we're delighted to welcome Jürgen Grebe of Commerzbank, and he will provide us with insights into the market for technical textiles. Commerzbank has issued a highly interesting study, which is today also available in English, and we look forward to these insights. But enough for me. Olaf Schmidt, I would like to hand the floor to you now, and enjoy. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Schwenzfeier, and a warm welcome also on my part. Welcome to the press conference here in the room and, of course, also online. All the very best to you. Until the end of the month, you can still wish a Happy New Year. This is what our German Knickebook of Rules says. And when you're amidst a trade show, then it is hard to realize that it's only January, because we have gone through two very, very busy Textile days. And I'm happy that the press conference for Texprocess and Techtextil can be held here so that you're informed about the next upcoming trade show in textiles, which will take place here at the Frankfurt home base in May. I want to use this opportunity, nevertheless, to briefly inform you about some facts of Textile 2015. We have 2,759 exhibitors here at the premises from a total of 68 countries, and this actually corresponds to a 2% increase against the previous year, this in 5 consecutive times, so a very high qualitative growth. And I'm sure you had the opportunity to look at one hall or the other, and you will have found that we're really fully booked. Some halls are really booked up to the last square meter. And in terms of themes, what we have focused is, of course, the theme park. This is a new concept of the trend area of Textile, and we've done this in particular to show that when we talk about trends, we're not only talking about trends in materials, but we're also talking about overriding themes such as sustainability, hospitality, equipment, and retail. 3 major themes of Textile 2015 are digital printing, Again, this is a link to the Texprocess because this is a technology that is increasingly used for home textiles. It actually posts fantastic growth rates, and it is on show in Hall 4.0 with companies from all different countries who are market leaders, showing which technologies are available for printing bedding, for instance. Then online e-commerce, web chance, our lecture series is important, selling home textiles online in addition to bricks and mortar retail. And of course, another boom theme is sustainability, which keeps us busy not only in textiles but in all other areas of production as well, but is of particular importance in textiles and which is heatedly disputed. And we support these measures with many, many marketing tools also here at the premises in order to identify companies that produce sustainably also for our visitors as quickly as possible. When we talk about Messe Frankfurt and its activities, then you know that we also like to look left and right. We are world market leaders in the organization of textile trade fairs. We currently have 46 textile trade fairs worldwide. Here on the map you can see the countries and cities that we're active in. There are 4 different segments: technical textiles, of course, and the processing of textiles. And this is what we're talking about when we talk about Techtextil and Texprocess. And we're, of course, active globally with garment fabrics, then for home textiles, the Heimtextil, and also for textile cleaning and laundry. Last year was very successful for Messe Frankfurt as a whole, but I'm only speaking about textile trade shows now. We had a premiere with the premiere of Tex World in November. I don't have to tell you how important the Turkish market is for us, both in terms of producers and also in terms of value added, in terms of manufacturing. And this is why we're also active in Istanbul now. In May 2014, the first Jack Americas was held for the first time. We're mentioning it because it was held concurrently with Techtextil North America and Texprocess Americas. Jack is a trade fair for composites, and we talked to Jack, and we said that it made sense to actually hold these trade fairs concurrently in Atlanta. Then we have a new acquisition in South America under the heading of and guidance of Messe Frankfurt. We will have Emitex together with 2 other trade fairs, together with Zimatex, and this means that we are now also active in the textile sector in South America. And in 2014, the Techtextil Pavilion took place in Dubai, concurrently with the Intersect Trade Fair organized by Messe Frankfurt, and we were able to leverage the synergies in this market in particular. For 2015, our textile growth will continue. Our strategic aim is, of course, to cover the entire value chain in textiles for our exhibitors, from the yarn to the fabrics, apparel fabrics, home textiles, technical textile, all the way down to downstream processing of textiles with Texprocess and Texcare, because sooner or later textiles also need to be cleaned. Next week, to be precise, on Monday, the Ethical Fashion Show in the Green Showroom will kick off in Berlin during the Berlin Fashion Week. We're now represented near the Ostbahnhof, the Eastern Station, in a new venue. and 160 labels will be presented, sustainable fashion labels. This is an event that we have organized twice a year during the Berlin Fashion Week, and we've posted extreme growth. This shows that this market is highly attractive, and high fashion trade fairs combined with other fashion fairs in Berlin. In May this year, we will kick off with a new event in Dubai. That's the Leather World Middle East. This is about leather processing. This is a new event made by Messe Frankfurt. And due to the target groups, we said this actually fits in well with our textile trade fair portfolio. The Intertextile in Shanghai in March this year, as one of the, if not the biggest garment textiles or fabrics taking place in the world. The other one in October is a little bigger still, but the growth rates are more important here. And it will be held in parallel with the CHIC, the China International Fashion Fair in China. And MICAM, a shoe trade fair from Italy, will also be held concurrently. So 3 trade shows at the same venue in Shanghai, at a new trade or exhibition center, and this is on the Pudong, on the sushi side of Shanghai, with a fantastic infrastructure, with its own shopping center and train station, the biggest exhibition center in the world. And there, all 3 trade shows will take place at the same time. We will continue cooperation with JEC in Houston, to be precise, in the U.S., in parallel with Techtextil North America, and we're especially delighted because it is of relevance to our Texprocess activities. Our colleagues in Tokyo have been commissioned with holding GIAM. The JASP Association has commissioned Mesago, this is our partners in Japan, to hold the Japan International Apparel, Machinery and Textile Industry Trade Show. And to be precise, this will be the case in 2016, and we're particularly proud of this. This is, of course, a show of trust for our colleagues in Japan. And for our network, this, of course, also means that we will be more active in Japan. So much for our activities. As you can see, there are lots of things moving, especially in the textiles segment. This is our strategy to be active for our customers around the globe, to really offer the best platforms at all stages of the value chain. And it is now my pleasure to actually introduce you to Elgar Straub, the Managing Director of VDMA Garment and Leather Technology. You know that VDMA is a conceptual sponsor of Texprocess here in Frankfurt, and he will provide us with interesting information on this trade fair, and later also on Techtextil. Thanks very much for your attention. Ladies and gentlemen, here in Frankfurt, ladies and gentlemen, back home at your desks, a Happy New Year and a very warm welcome to our press conference. Mr. Schmidt, thanks very much for the introductory remarks. Well, yes, a few words on VDMA. VDMA, as most of you will know, is the representation of the German engineering sector, but not only for German, but also increasingly for European manufacturers of plant and machinery. We're broken down into 38 associations, and one of them is the Garment and Leather Technology Association that I represent here today. In garment technology and leather technology, we're subdivided into 3 areas. This is sewing machines, leather and shoe technology, and laundry and textile cleaning machinery. And we partner with these for TexCare, which will take place in 2016 at Messe Frankfurt. Here we're particularly partner with Texprocess, and that is the areas of garment manufacturing, the machinery, the technology for making garments, and for processing technical textiles. And a fact is that our manufacturers, not only in Germany, but all over Europe, have gone through 2 very good years. And this is why I would like to change the charts and start with a chart further towards the back of my presentation. And it is this one. That's really interesting. Last year, at least for the months that we have already captured in our statistics, and this is January through September, we posted an increase in sales of 23%, to be precise. And also in the orders taken, we posted a 16% increase over the previous year. In real terms, that is. This is all the more striking since in the previous year we already posted growth. In 2013, exports of German manufacturers could be increased to 888 million euros. And sewing and garment technology needs to be emphasized with a 15% increase in 2013 compared to 2012. And add to this the increases of 2014. The final figures for 2014 will be available before Texprocess and during Texprocess. Well, then, on my actual presentation now, and that is the area of technology. Why are we so successful? We are convinced that this success feeds on technology, and we will also hear this from Mr. Grebe a little later. High technology is an absolute competitive edge. What is this all about? Well, this is a chart on Industry 4.0, or industrial communication, the industrial internet as the Americans call it, and especially in mechanical engineering, but in the IT industry, people are looking at this in particular right now. And this is also the topic that we will highlight at Texprocess. There are interesting new challenges for us and our customers. It is the digital interweaving of the elements of the manufacturing chain in garment production, but also in the production of technical textiles. So response times, shorter response times are key. Higher flexibility, maximum efficiency, and shorter lead times. Then the maximum possible efficiency counts, and of course the commitment to sustainability. These are things that seem to be a contradiction in terms, but our aim is to reconcile these different requirements. And you could actually summarize this best by saying we want a mass production with a lot size 1. It is a contradiction in terms, but this is exactly what this is all about. At Texprocess, we will be showing, for instance, how communication between the machine and the piece to be machined is enabled. This is not too far away in our industry. By using RFID chips, we can actually enable this communication between machine and garment. And this is the way ahead. Machines will come with more and more interfaces that can communicate with computers, not only on site, but it will actually enable communication worldwide. And this will be on show at Texprocess at many stands, but also at the Texprocess Forum. And I can already invite you today to have a look at these things. There are many exciting things ahead of us. At the end of the day, these developments are driven not only in our sector, but also by other industries, driven by the wish for more individuality, personalization. We want personalized products, and this personalization needs to be controlled by production. And this is why we need to adapt production correspondingly. A second important topic at Texprocess, which has kept us busy for the past few years, but keeps us busy increasingly, is sustainability. Sustainable production is also a top theme that will stay with us in future. The requirements, the market requirements posed by consumers, but also by retailers and labels are constantly rising, and also by the shareholders in companies based on stocks. Then regulation, whether this is in Germany, in Italy, or in Europe through the EU Commission, or in the US or in China, this is a hot topic around the globe. And our technology manufacturers and the customers actually need to be prepared for this. Sustainability is Technology is, of course, also a key to sustainability. All of these requirements can only be met thanks to technology, and this is why the VDMA has launched the Blue Competence Initiative, and this initiative will also be continued at Texprocess this year. As you can see, Texprocess is really the #1 trade show for technology, showing the key technologies for the future and showing us how we can actually stay competitive for our customers. Texprocess is also a global platform. We focalize all markets worldwide, but we, of course, benefit from the proximity to our customers in Europe, the most demanding customers in the world. We have the most demanding garment market. Just think of the labels in Italy, France, but also in Germany, that actually ask for higher quality time and again, because this is what their end users, their shoppers want. And in Europe, we are the most innovative and biggest market for technical textiles. The most important market developments, shorter response times are really key. Then transport and logistics costs need to be cut. And this is why markets are relocating back to the end users, at least for markets that actually work in higher-end price segments. The same holds true for the USA and Latin America. We can see a clear relocation towards end users there too. Further things that will keep us busy are digital printing and 3D printing, as Mr. Schmidt said. In the garment industry, in the shoe industry, this is really up and coming. This is, of course, still in its early stages, but it is quite interesting to watch developments here, especially for high-quality products. This can be very attractive over the next few years. And last but not least, e-commerce, that you actually cover at your desks time and again. This is, of course, a hot topic, playing an ever greater role for garments and processing of technical textiles. You've seen this chart now. Let's have a look at some charts that I will briefly walk you through on the developments in our sector. Here you can see the upswing in the German sewing and garment technology, but China, of course, continues to be the biggest manufacturer worldwide, followed by Japan and Germany. Our exports, speaking for Germany, our biggest market is the US, but it also shows that high technology markets are gaining in importance. The USA is our biggest market, followed by China and other countries, but it shows that these high-priced markets are no longer lagging behind, and it also shows that production is being relocated. And in the case of the US, it also shows that the production of technical textiles are gaining in importance for our customers too. So this is also a big topic for the US. Within Europe, Turkey continues to be in the lead. Other important countries are Russia. They've caught up. Of course, there needs to be a question mark put to this for the next few years. And this not only holds true for our sector, but also for other industrial sectors. We can't see what will happen there in future, but we'll have to see at the conversations here at Texprocess. Russia built an interesting industry and also started processing technical textiles. Then a brief chart for Northern Europe that I don't want to comment on. Now I've picked some countries here. Austria, for instance, the most important suppliers are the German suppliers. Italy continues to have a very high quality and big garment manufacturing, and also technical textiles are produced there. Switzerland is also interesting, although here major dealers play an important role. And France is also interesting to see. Again, Germany is the biggest supplier here. When you look at the high quality labels, when you think about France, then there are also high-tech, high-quality products in demand. Then Poland, that's an interesting chart. And this is already the end of my presentation. I would like to thank you very much for your attention and look forward to your questions afterwards. And I, of course, look forward to welcome you all at the Texprocess in early May. Thank you. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I am part of this now. I haven't seen some of you, so Happy New Year. And also wish the online colleagues a Happy New Year and look forward to cooperating with all of you and hope that we will be able to continue our successful cooperation. Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Straub already said it. That the year already took off to a very good start. Textile machinery industry, a very positive over the past few years. We see new investment worldwide, and I think this is good news. Against this backdrop, the Techtextil and the Texprocess will take place, and I will now provide you with a brief insight into what you can expect. Both actually generate synergies that are only available here in Frankfurt or in the US in this combination. We cover all types of technology, the manufacturing, the processing, and so on and so forth, and all the various materials. And we're showing all of this in the same place over 4 days. The target groups are identical for both events, in part, so that both on the part of the exhibitors and on the part of the visitors, we can expect major synergies that have been confirmed over the past few years. Let me start with the Texprocess. Looking back in time, Texprocess cannot look back on such a long story. It has been around since 2011, in contrast to the Techtextil, which has been around since 1986. But during the two events, the Texprocess has been very successful. We had 330 exhibitors last time and 12,000 visitors who attended Texprocess Direct, plus another 8,000 visitors who actually came from Techtextil, who used the opportunity. So that's 20,000 visitors in total, and they all were of very high quality as confirmed by the exhibitors. In terms of the concept, the Texprocess actually covers the entire value chain, starting from design, cutting, IT solutions, sewing, joining, embroidery, textile dressing, finishing, and logistics. All in all, 20 product groups were shown and representing the entire value chain. For this year, 2015, the outlook is very positive. 95% of the space of the previous event is already booked up. It was 70% 2 years ago at the same point in time. So the reservations, the booking situation is very good. All of the major market leaders are on board, as I will show you in the next chart. In terms of the concept, we will change something. The special area, sourcing, source it, will not actually be organized as a standalone area. It will actually be distributed among the various stands, and it will be honed in on by the forum. Then an innovation for both trade shows in terms of theme and in terms of location is the first innovative apparel show, and I will talk about the details in a minute. This is an overview of some of the leading manufacturers that we can welcome at Texprocess, including first-time exhibitors such as Avery Dennison, Biarevi, Epson, Ezbelem from Turkey. As I said, they're all of the market leaders are represented. Another special topic is IT here. Again, in view of Technology 4.0, we offer software companies software solutions for the garment and textile industry and the processing sectors. This event is, of course, supported by an extensive supporting program of events. This, of course, includes the Texprocess Innovation Award, which is open for non-exhibitors for the first time. The invitation letters will be sent out next week, and we're excited to see how many entries we will receive. Mr. Straub already alluded to it. The industry is highly innovative, and in many conversations over the past few weeks and months, some companies told us that they want to present innovations this year, so let's wait and see what's in the pipeline. Then there's the Texprocess Forum, where a wide variety of topics will be covered, and there is a special area for universities and polytechnics presenting their developments, and they also help to create a link between graduates and the industry. The Texprocess Forum, we are preparing the program right now, and with the Dialog Textilbekleidung, DTP's support, we will actually cover these themes. This is a list, a preliminary list of topics: sourcing, country presentation, sustainability and social standards, but of course also new technologies, logistics, 3D technology, RFID, and so on and so forth. I suppose that late January, early February, we will be able to provide you with a first overview of the program. What does this mean for the premises, the exhibition center? Color-coded are the 4 halls of Texprocess. The different colors are a color coding based on the product groups. And here at the interface, highlighted 5161, this is where the innovative apparel show will take place. It is the backbone and the link in terms of geography and in terms of content for both events. This is the logo that we use for advertising the Innovative Apparel Show. And the idea, the underlying idea, is that we want to use this fashion show and a special exhibition to allow universities and universities of applied sciences to present fabrics that were actually produced and processed with these technologies. There are 3 mottos: high-tech fashion, creative processing, and functional materials. And based on the feedback between our working party and the universities, things are very promising. I have not seen anything myself yet. These are the universities that we work with. It's the University Niederrhein, Textile and Apparel Engineering, then Westsächsische Hochschule Zwickau, and from Switzerland we've got the University from Lucerne. And for exhibitors, of course, because we had many inquiries, of course, and this is only limited to exhibitors here, we're offering our exhibitors to sponsor this event. And for the details, please go to your press kit. So it is a very promising configuration. which is now, of course, supported and assisted by Techtextil. Techtextil, let's look back in time, was the biggest and most successful edition ever in 2013. We were sold out. We posted double-digit growth in all segments, paired with a very high exhibitor and visitor satisfaction. As a result, we decided to talk to the advisory boards and to the industry and to extend the trade fair to 4 days. Techtextil, for the first time ever, will run for 4 days. This is quite striking because many trade shows are actually discussing the other extreme, to actually shorten the period. But due to the reservation and booking situation, we were also forced to add another hall. So we will actually hold Techtextil in 4 instead of 3 halls. And this means that we will have a closer dovetailing with the Texprocess. The booking numbers are excellent. Even today, we are 10% up on the previous year, and there are 3 months to go. And we're very confident that we will be able to add a few more bookings. Here at the bottom, you can see a list of national pavilions. Very positive is that we, for the first time ever, have a national pavilion from Switzerland, Swiss Textiles, it is called. Then British Textile Machinery Association is represented for the first time as a national pavilion. And Russia, as was alluded to before, nobody really knows how to actually estimate the Russian market. There was a huge investment in technical textiles announced last year in November. We are talking about a Russian national pavilion right now. Yesterday, I talked to my colleagues in Moscow, and we do hope that end of the year we will get a definite answer of the ministry. But there is quite a sizable number of companies that are prepared to come to Frankfurt if the ministry greenlights this activity. So this is very promising in these, say, difficult times. For Techtextil, we also have a complementary program. We will continue the Innovation Award and, of course, the Techtextil Symposium, but there is a new thing about it. In the past, we said Techtextil and Avantex, and we used to have 2 Innovation Awards and 2 symposiums. This is now grouped under Techtextil, but the contents will, of course, be retained. And the student competition, Textile Structures for New Building, will also be continued because this was a big success story. It actually addresses young students, and we want to whet their appetite for technical textiles. And we do this with the help of Tensinet. The Techtextil Symposium 2015, an overview. It is only called Techtextil Symposium now, but the Avantex topics are also covered. We also decided to offer more service and become more attractive, and this is why there will be no more parallel sessions. We have established an international program committee and have developed 6 themed sessions. For instance, new functional clothing or new materials are the headings. And this made it possible to hold the symposium closer to Techtextil. So far, we were forced to actually go to the Congress Center, but from this year, the symposium will take place in 4.2, Hall 4.2. 4.1 will be Techtextil, and upstairs, the symposium will take place. So everything is in easy reach. You can simply go upstairs and attend a lecture. In dark blue, you see the 4 levels of Techtextil. And when you then add it up, gray we are in 4 halls now, covering 2 levels each, overlapping at times. So there is a closed loop for visitors now, and this makes it even easier for visitors now to be guided through the halls and really see all of the ranges. Then, seeing all of the ranges, well, you as journalists all know how intense Techtextil was, especially last time. Texprocess, same story. And this is why we're asking you, and we're repeating this in our press releases time and again. The ranges are increasing. It is highly complex. The industry is highly creative. There are exciting developments on show. This is a dialogue-rich industry, and this is why I would like to urge you, please prepare for the trade shows. Use what we've got on our website to prepare. And you actually cover this with your previews as journalists. But come with more time, allow for more time, because seeing over 1,600 exhibitors in just 2 days is not that easy. We know what this means. And this is why we're looking forward to 2 excellently positioned events. It's going to be 4 very exciting, very intense days for all of us. And the fact that this is all embedded into a very positive future, this will be actually confirmed by Jürgen Grebe. He's the corporate sector analyst of Commerzbank AG, and they have published a report on technical textiles. And Mr. Grebe will provide you with an overview. Thank you very much for your attention. A very good morning and Happy New Year from me. I don't know what you feel like when you actually discuss technical textiles with non-experts and want to know from what they say. I often hear, well, this is wipes, this is upholstery. Yes, I usually say yes, true, but it is also the outer skin of the Airbus 380, or it's artificial arteries, for instance. What I'm trying to say is that technical textiles are still underestimated, and their importance for economy and everyday life. And this is also the reason why we as Commerzbank, a bank, actually decided to have a deeper look into this industry. What does the industry look like? We have followed the classification that you follow, and that is traditional, conventional textiles with a market share of 52% in 2011 in terms of value. Then the so-called non-wovens, and last but not least, the composites, which still account for a smaller share, but in volume, but in value they do. And it already shows that technical textiles have a worldwide global share of roughly 25%, and this underlines the importance that I tried to explain at the beginning of my talk. So what's the overall situation? And we followed the terminology of Messe Frankfurt and the segments, and I don't think I have to explain these to you. Mobile tech is still the most important area, followed by Indutech, and here in particular the filtration segment, but also sports tech. These are the 3 segments that are still most important, but there are some growing fast, like geotech, and China and India actually account for roughly 50% of global production, due to their disproportionately high representation in cloth tech and pack tech. But these are the segments with lower value added, and this is why the value-based image looks different. But China and India still account for roughly half the 50% of the global production for technical textiles. Conventional textiles have grown structurally, but there have been economic dips. But overall, you could say this is structural growth, and we would expect that the conventional technical textile by 2018 will go up to $160 billion in sales. Nonwovens actually posted even bigger growth worldwide, both worldwide and in Europe. The production and sales in the decade between 2012 have more than doubled. China, since 2013, has taken world leadership and should actually account for 28%, which is the global share. And we expect nonwovens to grow fast as well. And by 2015, they will amount to 10 million tons, and this correlates to $24 billion US. For composites, the situation is a little more varied. I have to limit myself to Europe here. We don't have any global figures. Germany, the UK, and Eastern Europe have posted continuous strong growth, at least after 2008 and 2009, the years with dips all over the place, while France, Italy, and Spain have suffered from the weak demand in the areas of automotive and construction. But it should be pointed out that on a global scale, this picture looks different. Turkey and Saudi Arabia, together alone, have higher production volumes than any other European country. As I said before, all over the economic cycle, the growth has been very continuous, but especially in 2008 and 2009, we can clearly say that the area of technical textiles really suffered. And this means that when we have a cyclical dip, we have to expect that the technical textiles will be affected disproportionately high and strongly. But we suppose that this will be more than compensated for in the wake of an economic recovery. This is the growth prospects as we expect them for the various segments over the next few years. You can see that mobile tech continues to be the most important segment and will continue posting strong growth rates, but it will be joined by other segments. We see big growth in the area Öko-tech, which is still a niche segment, but we will see disproportionately high growth. What are the drivers of this growth? I will mention this a little later. It is, of course, the permanently emerging new applications for technical textiles. It varies, of course. The drivers are different. But you can say that this is one of the major growth drivers in the future, apart from other megatrends that we're all aware of. In the nonwoven segment, hygiene continues to be the segment with the biggest applications, followed by construction and by wipes. And here you can see that the value added here will be a little lower, So the volume is more important than the value here. For composites, the situation is different yet again. There we expect in the areas of aviation, wind energy, strong growth rates above average. Again, construction continues to be the segment that still buys most, followed by automotive, of course, which also will post sizable growth in future, but it is not as strong as wind energy or automotive. Then briefly, let's look at cost structures. Both for nonwovens and for conventional technical textiles, material costs are, of course, dominating, but energy costs are increasing in importance, especially in Germany. This was mentioned before. Energy costs will turn into a cost factor that is concerning, will be even more concerning in future. But apart from that, material costs are really dominant. And this is why it makes sense to look at how the materials are used and it makes sense to look at the materials that are used. Chemical fibers still dominate. And on the right-hand pie chart, you can see that we already have a high share of high-performance fibers, and we suppose that this share will continue to grow in future. This just has to do with the rising demands made on technical textiles. And this is also a proof of the rising value added by technical textiles in future. Briefly, a look on prices of the various and the key fiber types. For chemical fibers, you can see that there was a clear increase, which flattened, leveled off, and we will expect further moderate growth. For cotton fibers, we are aware of the erratic fluctuations. This has normalized to a certain extent. This is the right-hand axis in this chart. And for glass fiber, the trend has been pretty stable. This probably has to do with the flatter development in Europe and in Southern Europe in particular. When you compare this with producer prices, because we've compared producer prices for technical textiles and producer prices for nonwovens, and then compare this with prices for chemical fibers, then you will see that for technical textiles in particular, the margins have become smaller, and this therefore reflects the margins, this chart. This was sort of a problem for the industry. We'll have to wait and see how this develops in future. We expect a moderate development for chemical fibers, and that producer prices will also take a moderate development. Then let's briefly look at the earnings situation as far as we could identify it. And we looked at statistics as published by FERI, the Sectoral Institute. In the weak years, in 2009 in particular, the earnings clearly reflect an impact here, but there was a clear recovery, especially for the conventional textile, technical textiles. And it also shows a recovery for the nonwovens. But over one cyclical fluctuation, we can say that the earnings developments have been quite satisfactory. But you have to admit, if there are any economic dips in the overall economy, then the sector of technical textiles are affected more strongly than other sectors. What are the key trends for the future? Well, one key trend is, of course, new areas of application. And this is, of course, driven by new research areas. Let me mention bionics, for instance, or nanotechnology. I mean, you're all familiar with this. Photovoltaics, PV is a big topic, or smart textiles. This is all areas that will play a major role in future for the development of technical textiles. And to give you one confirmation for what we said, the World Cup winners' goal was actually scored with a technical textile woven shoe, football shoe. It goes to show that some areas are now being conquered by technical textiles that we didn't have on the radar. But digital printing, for instance, is also a big thing. Plasma technology for surface treatment may be a topic that can gain importance. And there are many more things that you can think of. Technology, as was repeatedly said today, is one of the core topics for the future development of technical textiles. We do not think that European and German manufacturers in particular will be successful producing standard products on standard machinery. This will certainly not the case. They will have to obtain a USP, and we think that this is easier to do when you cooperate with the equipment manufacturers to to obtain a joint and shared USP. And this is why we think that the closer cooperation between manufacturers and upstream suppliers will be one of the key trends for the future. And this will, of course, be the case for customers too. So what are the success factors? Of course, technology leadership, as I tried to mention before, but of course also energy and raw material efficiency. Then CHP, raw material efficiency, such as the optimization of a fiber mix or fiber recycling, can be important here in future. Then sustainability strategies, they've been mentioned several times before today. I don't think I have to dwell on this here. But also the development of mass production technologies could be of interest in the areas that are very advanced, but things that cannot be produced for the right cost. This could be the breakthrough. Then brands are gaining in importance. Also for technical textiles, we think that in some countries and on some markets, a better property protection is of key importance. And of course, internationalization, globalization is a key theme, because we all know that the growth opportunities, the growth markets are situated in threshold economies, in threshold countries, and also for technical textiles. So internationalization is also key for medium-sized and smaller manufacturers in Europe and in Germany. What is a success factor is, of course, also a risk factor. New technologies. You're always in the risk of being overtaken by new technologies. You have to be aware of this. And you have to stay ahead of technology. Then the know-how protection, the protection of intellectual property is of key importance. As I said when I talked about brands, this is an issue that is very serious for many manufacturers. Protecting intellectual property abroad is not always easy. What we often hear from the industry is that they are worried about the availability of chemical fibers, because the production base of chemical fiber has shifted largely to China, and there is an increasing dependence on imports. We have to see how this develops in future. But these concerns are currently voiced. And this also applies to dyes and textile auxiliaries. There, the production base has shifted. And again, manufacturers here are dependent on these countries. Then preferential rules of origin are also an obstacle. Cross-border supply chains have a number of benefits, but also run the risk that wherever there are trade treaties, they of course are associated with some red tape to prove where the individual ingredients have originated from. And this is troubling the industry to an increasing extent. The fluctuations in commodity prices, as I showed before, may also be an important topic in future. We expect most core raw materials to increase moderately in price, but nobody really knows what the development will look like. And the price fluctuations we've seen in the past were not really expected by each and every one, I guess. Then capacity utilization with fluctuating order levels and with fluctuating markets. This is, of course, also keeping the industry busy. The chart showed the fluctuations quite impressively, depending on the cyclical fluctuations. To buffer this in future will be one of the core challenges. And the industry is, of course, also concerned with the brain drain, the migration of know-how. These are the key factors I wanted to show you as success and risk factors. In summary, you could say that when you look at the outlooks and the challenges for the sector of technical textiles, then the outlook is characterized by the fact that technical textiles, of course, will profit from the global megatrends, which means growth, world population growth, environmental protection, and growing urbanization. But also the permanent conquest of new application areas is a driver. And I may also say that the German industry regarding this point seems to be pretty well positioned, not least because it is so well networked with the German research landscape, which seems to be unique worldwide, I was told. So the prerequisites are very positive. The key challenges are strong cyclical impacts, the permanent innovation and development of mass production processes in some areas, and last but not least, internationalization. All in all, we can say that in spite of the market cyclical fluctuations, technical textiles is and remains a growth industry characterized by a large number of small and often very much underestimated niche players. Companies that are SMEs, but companies that will actually drive the future of technical textiles. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Grebe. Well, I would also like to thank the other speakers, and I'd like to open for questions now. And the first question was received, no name. It's a freelance journalist, and the question is addressed to Mr. Jennecke and Mr. Schmidt. The buzzword is innovative apparel show. How will the garments be presented? Will the designers be on site? Yes. The prototype garments will be presented twice a day, and on Thursday once on a catwalk. And at the same time, the same exhibits will be available in a special show in Hall 6.1. So the visitors can actually have a close look at ease. And there's also an audience award, so visitors have the chance of voting for the best development. Following each catwalk show, there will be a brief presentation by the relevant designers. No online questions. Mrs. von Bonmann was slightly faster. And Mr. Crockett, you're number 2. Just please wait for the microphone. Claudia von Bonn, Redaktion Technische Textilien. I have 2 questions. But before I ask them, I would like to thank Mr. Grebe and Commerzbank for this extremely good and well-researched study that really helps all of us. Thank you very much for that. One question regarding Texprocess. I would like to know about the background for the sourced area no longer being presented as a separate area. And a second question for Techtextil. You've sold 10% more space at this point already. Can you already say why this is so? Have the stands grown, or are there new exhibitors? And if so, is there a trend where they come from? This was it for me. Let's start with Texprocess. The sourced area used to be specifically designed for the providers of production capacities, so Asian countries that wanted to offer production capacities. Unfortunately, the critical mass was missing to realize this area. This is also due to the fact that economic promotion in these countries was stopped for such participations. This is the reason. We will, of course, continue with this topic. There's still some isolated companies offering production capacities and will be represented at Texprocess. And we will also hone in on this at the Texprocess Forum. At Techtextil, there are two trends. The new exhibitors, I mentioned Switzerland, for instance, and the British Textile Machinery Association. But this is, of course, paired with the fact that exhibitors have enlarged their stands. We cannot tell you where we will end because there's a high number of national pavilions and we're still in the inquiry stage. So end of February, we will know a lot more. Mrs. von Bonn, your questions have been answered. Mr. Crockett was the second faster. Microphone. First question goes to Mr. Grebe. You are advertising on TV that you want to do more for medium-sized businesses, theoretically. I am a young researcher, a scientist from a young research institute. I want to become self-employed and with a startup. I don't have any rich parents, but I have a well-researched textile knowledge, and I don't have any real estate either. How would you help such people? I know from the States that if young scientists submit a reasonable project, a business model, then they get money. They are supported. And this is one criterion why the U.S. is so successful, be it in the IT or in other sectors. Second brief question. Scarcity of skilled labor, not only engineers, but also skilled workers. How precarious is the situation, really? When you read how many engineers are stepping down from Chinese universities, what are you doing to convince or win over young people to study textile engineering? And it starts with the question, what do you do to bring technical textiles to the grassroots level? This is the question that was asked at the opening press conference of Textil. And the last question, are there any obstacles for German technical textiles to the Chinese and the Indian market in particular, because these are major growth markets for technical textiles? I'm thinking of patents and brand piracy, of course. That was it. Mr. Grebe, first question for you. Well, this is quite a challenge, to be perfectly honest, because I'm a sector analyst, but not so much of a product specialist. But I am sure that our company also has programs for startups. How they are handled, I have to admit, I can't tell you in detail. But I do think that sectoral knowledge plays a role there. But without being able to give you any detailed information there, you're talking to a corporate sector analyst. I'm not a startup specialist, so you would have to talk to experts at our bank. The second question referred to scarcity of skilled labor. Mr. Straub, would you like to comment on this? And Mr. Jennecke, one after the other. That will be best. Yeah, we'll try. And we will also try to stay positive. On scarcity of skilled labor, yes, the analysis is correct. This is, of course, a tough topic in Germany. But I do feel that the industry, the associations, the trade fairs have identified this problem. And they have understood that for the area of garment, textile working and textile processing, we need initiatives. There are a number of initiatives organized by individual companies, of course. And when you look at the universities and the relevant number of students, you will see that these initiatives have been successful. Then there are initiatives by universities and universities of applied sciences to recruit experts. This is going pretty well. And there are, of course, also initiatives, as you rightly said, to recruit more skilled workers. This was, of course, a huge problem over some time. In the industry, all parties involved, and this includes the Labor Office, they all identified that the area of technical textiles is an industry for the future, of the future. This is known now, and this is why I think that we stand a better chance of finding these skilled workers. We at VDMA, the German Engineering Federation, are starting a broad-based national initiative addressing students at schools that we try to bring into contact with companies so that the students, the pupils, are already informed about possibilities for becoming a skilled worker in those companies at an early stage. And this is, of course, also done by other federations as well and by companies. I think we're on the right track there. And you're right, we could do more. But studies such as the one from Commerzbank and trade fairs as Texprocess and Techtextil do help to create awareness, to raise awareness amongst young people and to be more alert for this industry. We are on the right track, but I can only also ask the media to support us to really disseminate this. And the more daily newspapers we get that actually tell success stories about these segments, the sooner we will get new talent. For Germany, we have to admit that in terms of the age pyramid, we're, of course, at a certain disadvantage. And this is why we're also trying to recruit people from other European countries, but also beyond European borders. Maybe let me add, Germany in particular has many textile institutes and universities that train. The courses are full. When you look at Mönchengladbach, for instance, then the federations are doing a lot. The VGT is here. Dr. Matsura of the Umbrella Association in the press conference on Tuesday said the same thing. It is up to all of us to send out a positive signal. Many things work out on a regional level. Many workers are recruited locally, and if I have a good image there, then I find it easier to recruit workers. This is not a specifically German problem. This actually applies to all countries. We also offer the job fair, where exhibitors can actually advertise their free capacities and vacancies. And the third question referred to exports specifically from Germany to China and the protection of intellectual property, brand protection. Machinery. Mr. Straub? You referred more to textiles, but let me start with machinery. For many, many years, we've been struggling there in terms of copies and properties and know-how protection. You will never be able to come to grips with that 100%. There are, of course, on the various level, in-depth talks with the various countries to bring about an improvement. But we do not always have to point at China. It even happens in our own backyard at times. It is an issue that exists in competition, and it does not always have to involve patent violation. I mean, it is annoying when you're being copied. That's a fact. What we do with our companies, and I think this is also what should be of interest for the garment manufacturers and technical textiles, what we do is that we try to use technical opportunities. We have many technical possibilities today using IT, for instance, attaching specific features or introducing specific sensors or certificates for various pressure mechanisms that you cannot copy that easily. There are things you can do. At VDMA, we actually tackled this topic a number of years ago very intensely. In addition to this, you've got the legal possibilities, but you cannot exclude it 100%. Technology leadership was mentioned a minute ago. You always have to be a number of years ahead in terms of technology. This is the best protection you can get. And this is what we're continuing to do. Where we are very restricted is the area of Brazil. Let me pick one market here in particular. If there are borders to trade in terms of customs and tariffs, the way we experience it in mechanical engineering and that we find in Brazil, then there's no way around it. If you have a 15 or 30% tax barrier that you need to overcome because they are local manufacturers, then there is no way to do anything about it. Technology can be at its best. You would have to try on the political front. This is what we try to do versus Brazil, but unfortunately this country has been protecting itself for many, many years. This is a clear drawback, but this is one specific case that does not occur with other countries to that extent. The question, let me repeat the question. The question was whether the brand is probably a better protection than a patent. I think Mr. Grebe already mentioned this in his talk. Of course, you cannot see this for all producers. There is an increasing number of machinery manufacturers that no longer file for a patent. They simply focus on their product and try to be faster than the rest of the world. Because as soon as they file the patent, they lose time, lose a lot of money. And at the patent office, regardless where they are, many parts of that know-how already need to be revealed and disclosed. And there are many, many competitors around the globe that have complete departments that do nothing but research patents in order to get these developments, slightly change them, and then actually present them on their market as their own. So you always have to look at each individual case, and each company has to come up with its own philosophy. There is not one fits all solution. But we support our companies very intensely in this. One more question? There was one more question in the front row. You have to wait for the microphone, I'm afraid. You asked about India versus China, and this is my competence, and this is why I would like to briefly answer. I'm Dr. Graz of IBVT. We also do trade policy apart from technical textiles, which we've been dealing in for 10 years now, very intensely. The problem with India is different. It has a legal system that is like the one in the further head of the Commonwealth, and that's England. But the trade barriers are key. You have to produce in India locally to overcome these barriers. If you want to export, the customs barriers are so high that it's no longer fun to ship goods there because it doesn't pay off, although the markets are so attractive. There are ongoing negotiations for 7 years about an EU-India free trade agreement. It's not as heatedly disputed as TTIP, but nevertheless, it has not made any progress. And this is due to the fact that the Indian government has problems in other market segments, not so much in the textile area. And I never tire to tell the Indian delegations here at Techtextil who always want to see me that they should not actually lament about Pakistan if they don't want to agree on this free trade agreement with the EU. We had a question at the back of the room. Wilhelm Rauch, Industrievereinigung Chemiefaser. First of all, thanks very much for your presentation, Mr. Grebe. I represent the Association of the Manufacturers of Chemical Fibers. You mentioned the increasing dependence on the imports of chemical fibers. Well, we cannot actually endorse this statement because the whole portfolio of our members has been changed over to technical textiles. More than 50% of the fibers produced are now going to the healthcare sector or to hygiene applications. Furthermore, in future, a new carbon fiber line will be built up that from the yarn all the way to the precursor and the carbon fiber will be producing here in Germany. But what we often see is that people want to import these fibers at low prices. We get the inquiries from customs clearance, and we, of course, ask our members, can anyone supply? And so far, supply was never an issue, but we found that these supplies were not used. So we can supply, but companies obviously don't want our supplies at this price, at these prices. So my question, this impression of the increasing dependence on imports, are there probably any effects that we're unaware of? Should we talk to each other? Is this the impression that you have from the sector? First of all, this is statements made from the industry, but also that we heard from associations. This may also have to do with the shifting and the relocation of production capacities. Maybe this has not been a problem in the past, but it's like a problem that could be related to trade barriers because the production base is moving away from Europe. Of course, and you're right, of course, you also have to decide by the quality of fibers. With special fibers, this is, of course, different compared to the conventional commodity fibers. Other questions? Mrs. Schlomsky was first.
Apologize.
English sprechen.
Arthur Sager, Textile Asia. Mr. Grebe, I did not hear anything in your presentation factoring in the dramatic decline of particularly petroleum prices and other raw materials. How does the bank see that factor? Is it going forward going to dramatically affect the business downstream? What is the bank's position on that?
Well, I have to admit that when we concluded this report, we did not factor in this dramatic price development in crude oil prices. It hadn't happened yet. We could only see the first stages, really. What could the impact be? Well, actually, the raw material price should come down. So I don't know whether this should be an issue for the sector as a whole. Quite on the contrary, it could probably prompt one or two to restructure production, hoping or expecting these prices, the crude oil prices, to stay that low. This could be a risk, but all in all, I don't know why this should be a problem. But as I said, we concluded the report before these dramatic price developments on raw materials prices actually occurred. Next question, Mrs. Schlomsky, Iris Schlomsky, Textile Network. My question goes to Mr. Jenneck and Mr. Straub. The combination of Techtextil and Texprocess. The visitors visiting Techtextil are interested in fabrics, in textiles, but not automatically also in how they are processed with machinery, the machinery shown at Texprocess. So my question reads, how high will be the percentage of visitors visiting Techtextil who are also interested in processing presented at Texprocess? So how high is the actual overlap? Well, I'll try to give you an answer because nobody can really give you a real estimate. We had 8,000 visitors, one-third of the Techtextil that attended Texprocess. And of Texprocess, it was roughly 45% who attended Techtextil. This is what we could find out from our surveys. I think that this percentage should be a lot higher because the processes and the development of new products is getting ever more complex. So I do not only have to focus on the material, I also have to make sure I know how to process it. And this, of course, involves the Texprocess technologies on display there. And even if Texprocess, in terms of focal themes, is a technology-based trade fair, we know that many visitors that attend Texprocess find answers for new materials at Techtextil. So it's a perfect fit. Ideally, all visitors should see everything, but this would be the ideal world.
Mr. Grebe. In your report, Mr. Grebe, when you speak about Entschuldigung. Ich kann nicht in Deutsch.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Sorry. When you speak of composites, the figures you were giving, are these referring to technical textiles in composites or final finished composite parts? There's a big difference.
It's composite parts. We got the figures from AVK.
It was a quick one.
And in the front row, we've got another question. Microphone is arriving now. Manfred Wilsch, Pro Leder and Shoes. Mr. Schmidt, I have one question regarding the leather world Middle East. Do you have a few more effects? We talked about it a few months ago. And can you already say something about the structure? Yes, this is the case. Yesterday, we had an internal conversation about this. We have registrations from France and Italy, and we're very happy about these, especially in the tanning industry, so that we can look to May with optimism. We're talking to further suppliers, but the focus will be on offering leather product ranges, not so much leather processing when you refer to machinery.
Eine Frage.
Manik Mehta, one question. I have heard so much about China and India, too much about China and India, really. So you seem to be very focused on these two countries. But apart from that, how do you estimate the other Asian markets? There is a newly formed association, AEC, ASEAN Economic Community. How do you see this community? Mr. Straub? And I will start for the machine producers for garment and leather technology. You're absolutely right. This is because China and India are simply so big. The sheer market size makes us actually mention these markets first and foremost. But we know that when you look at China in particular, that there have been many production relocations, not only by foreign companies producing China, but also by Chinese companies. And you're absolutely right. The focus is currently also on other countries. For many, many years, we've talked about Vietnam, but the production capacities in Vietnam are also largely exploited for our customers now. The focus is on Indonesia, a very important market. Needless to say, Bangladesh in South Asia, this is always key, with an increasing upgrading of production quality. Then Pakistan, which is a very important producer. Myanmar has been talked about a lot recently, but Myanmar is not comparable in terms of size with the other previously mentioned countries in terms of the sheer size of production facilities. So there's a number of interesting and attractive countries, and yet I can only subscribe to what you said. At the VDMA, we're also trying to show to our companies these markets, and they're more and more, there's more and more inclination to work these markets. Are there any other questions? Two more questions. The lady was first. And I follow the principle, ladies first. Doris Bauer of Möbelfertigung magazine. The trade fair duo almost 100% overlaps with Interzum in Cologne. There's also an overlap of the Texprocess with the product portfolio. You're talking to your exhibitors, aren't you? Are there any requests of not holding them in parallel? It worked out 2 years ago, 4 years ago. It was overlapping 100%. Is there any feedback that the exhibitors want to focus this trade fair? Could you comment on this? Well, I'll get started. This is the question we need to answer. Do we want to expect our international visitors to attend 2 trade fairs in Germany or just 1? I don't think that somebody actually travels from Latin America or from Asia within a period of 2 weeks twice to Europe to attend a trade fair. And so far, it is truly a challenge, especially for the exhibitors. We are aware of this. We had many talks, but there are also benefits for the visitors when the 2 trade fairs are very close. So we, of course, encourage visitors to visit Techtextil and Texprocess. Furniture production is, of course, also covered by the Texprocess and by the Techtextil portfolio. That's a fact. I can only subscribe to that. We have not received a cancellation due to that overlap. Some companies are not happy because they have to send 2 teams to 2 different trade fairs. But there is the high-speed connection between Frankfurt and Cologne now. Within 1.5 hours, you've traveled from one exhibition center to the other. That's one thing. But none of the 2 trade fairs has done this deliberately, I can tell you. It's we have ACHEMA this year. We're holding the ACHEMA trade fair, and this is bringing the dates forward. This is the only reason why we're so early in May. And then we have one question, Textile World. One remark, Mr. Graber, congratulations on the great job you've done. And now my question. Are there exhibitor figures for Texprocess and Techtextil for today? Any current figures? No, I didn't say it. I haven't said it yet. No. The exhibitor figures are above the numbers of at the same time last year, but we will publish a list, an initial list, early next week. But this will only be the principal exhibitors. So the companies that register, they actually take along other companies, and I can only inform you about those at the end of February because that will be the time of the catalog. Well, Texprocess, roughly over 200, and Techtextil will end up at 800 to 900 main exhibitors. And this is just the confirmed exhibitors. And compared to the previous year or the previous event, this is again up. And one last look at the audience. We're running late. All of the speakers are, of course, available for bilateral conversations. I'd like to thank you for your attention. And we can, of course, all smile into the camera for a photograph. Thank you very much. Enjoy Heimtextil and see you in May in Frankfurt.